Hi, I'm Jo.
And I'm Sarah, and welcome to episode 11 of the Society of Unpublished Authors. This podcast is recorded in Western Sydney on the lands of the Darug people. We pay our respects to the original custodians and storytellers of this land and to the elders past and present.
On this episode this week, we're going to listen to a couple of interviews that I did at the Sydney Writers' Festival a couple of weeks ago. Our first interview is with a local Western Sydney writer called Adam Byatt, who is also part of Kid Lit West, and he's a prize-winning author. He wins all the Western Sydney writing prizes. I think they've made him a judge now. But he's amazing. And he has an upcoming online short story writing class coming as well, which we will put a link to in our show notes. And this is what Adam had to say. Okay, I'm here at the Sydney Writers' Festival with Western Sydney writer Adam Byatt. Adam, how has your day been so far?
It's been fantastic. This is my first ever time attending a writers' festival. I put it on my list of 50 things to do in my 50s, so I can go tick. Next aim on that list is to be on a panel at the writers' festival.
You heard it here first. Adam Byatt is going to be perhaps the next Sydney Writers' Festival.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
And what have you been to so far today, and what have you got coming up?
This morning I went to see the Anatomy of a Verse Novel panel with Pip Harry, Robbie Coburn, Karen Comer and Jason Jent. It was a fabulous session of pulling apart what is a verse novel, why it's so popular at the moment and what it can do. And I think my takeaway from that session was it's an art form that can engage reluctant readers.
Yep.
It's one that connects us to our oral traditions. So storytelling, poetry, rhythm, meter, that connection of heart to a story is what sells it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there for reluctant readers, you are a high school teacher. Have you used any verse novels in the classroom?
I haven't for a while.
Yeah.
I remember we used to use Stephen Herrick's A Simple Gift as our text in year 11, and that was what got me into verse novels in the first place, where it's such an engaging read, but it invites you into the page to connect with the characters and the setting and the imagery and the things that build in a heartfelt story. And I think every story, whether it's verse novel or prose or longer novels, there's always the heart of something. And I think, as the panel said, when you are condensing your language into specific bite-sized chunks, I suppose,
Yep.
but when you're framing your text in a way that is precise, every word matters and every word counts. And in doing so, you can turn pages and feel successful if you're a reluctant reader, but you're also building that world inside your head.
Yeah, I love that. Was what I took away from that panel as well, those things they said. So you're also a writer. Can we expect a verse novel from you?
You can. I've had one on the shelf for quite some time because it's inspired by Stephen Herrick, and now it's getting a bit of a run over. So I'm pulling it apart, putting it up on the blocks and seeing who's who in the zoo and what can I do with it. And I think there's some value in it to really reflect more of Western Sydney, more of young people's perspectives on the world, and a way of making it authentic. It's just funny when you're an adult writer trying to write for teenagers and you're thinking, what was I like as a teenager? What do I want to know about or talk about? What's relevant, what's current? As a teacher, you get glimpses of those things, of what's happening, and some things haven't changed. You can still see in students that search for identity and meaning and where do I fit in?
It's very universal.
And even though I sit in my English classroom, having those conversations, you get the sense of what do they want out of life? And they're not sure. Like I was unsure when I finished high school going, what do you want to do when you finish school? I don't know. So you go and do the Bachelor of Attendance.
I love that. And what have you got coming up this afternoon?
This afternoon, off to Young Hearts Run Free, which is a panel with our friend Zoe Gaetjens, young adult rom-coms, which I think is a really fascinating area. Because I think, as someone said this morning in verse novels, it's about firsts.
Absolutely. I was going to say the exact same things. Being a young adult is so much about firsts and first love.
Navigating the first crushes, first heartbreaks.
Kiss, even when it doesn't go to plan,
Yep.
which happens in Zoe's book.
Absolutely. And then that kind of awkwardness of how do you approach someone, how do you talk to somebody, how do you navigate consent and physical touch and things that you're sort of going, I was like that once. And then you go, cringe.
We did say earlier you were part of the Old Man Club.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else you're looking forward to today?
Just the vibe?
Just the vibe's been great. Sitting around talking to people about anything and everything, creativity and life and stories, and just finding a stranger to chat to in a line while you're waiting to go into a panel, and just seeing what they're up to and finding out what they're enjoying, and just seeing that there's a great community and connection amongst people regarding books. But that could be about anything. There's sport, music, gardening, quilting. But for us today, it's about books and what that culture brings for us.
And I want to say thank you too. I can see your bag of books there. It looks like you're perhaps single-handedly keeping the Australian publishing industry alive with that enormous bag of books.
Yep. I picked up books from Karen and Pip and Jason and Robbie because I think it's important to support your writers. Get them signed. I have a special shelf at home for all my autographed copies because they're important. And some of these books I've read, some of them I haven't. But it's, again, a learning experience and engaging with that writing, engaging with the beauty of that language, and to see how you can make things accessible, but also at times, I think, raw. There's a wonderful rawness in some young adult writing where it can feel that awkward expression of life, and you want to get that sense of the gut-churning nerves that happen in your own world, and even as an adult, you go, oh, that happened. I remember that time, but way back when. I think those universal experiences become authentic when on the page a reader goes, I felt that too. And that's, I think, what I've been always aiming for, that connection with even just one reader to go, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, me too. I felt that too.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, well, thank you so much for your insights today, and have a great rest of the festival.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Joe, you also went to the verse novel panel that he went to. What did you think about it?
I absolutely loved that panel. I, like some of the authors that were on the stage, fell in love with verse novels years ago after reading The Art of Taxidermy. And ever since then, I've just loved reading verse novels. And it was really good to hear from the actual authors just some of the techniques that they use and their reasoning for different word choices. And just the idea that a verse novel is not just a regular prose novel that's just been chopped up. Some people might think, oh, you just, put a few words on a line, and it's a sentence that you could kind of have on a regular line. But it's really not. There's such a blend of like poetry and story, and they're really written in little fragments. And they use lots of different poetic techniques. Like, they're not just chopped up prose. And I hadn't really thought about that before, but that does make perfect sense. And they're very emotion driven, and as Adam said, they can appeal to reluctant readers. They're really engaging, and just like Adam said, at the heart of the verse novels is story, which is the heart of any book, really.
Do you have any verse novel recommendations or ones that you've read recently that you really loved?
Yeah, so on the panel, two of the authors were Karen Comer and Pip Harry. I have read Pip Harry's Drift, which I believe is on the shortlist for the CBCA this year. And that is an amazing verse novel. That's beautiful, very engaging story. And I've also recently read Karen Comer's Once Upon a Tomorrow. And that verse novel is a blending of 3 different stories, one from the present, one from 100 years in the future, and also a retelling of a fairy tale. Now, that is one of my absolute favorite reads for the year. It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow, I haven't read any verse novels. If you were to recommend a verse novel to someone, what is something that you would want them to know going into it?
I think I would want them to know that it's not poetry that you study in school. If people don't like poetry, they might think, oh, a verse novel, it's just going to be like a massive book of poetry. But they're really not. They might use poetic devices and they might appear to look like poetry, but they're not poetry. And they're just really enjoyable, and it's just a really beautiful way to hear a story.
Awesome. You also, on that poetry note, had a chance to speak with Phil Wilcox, who is from the Story Factory. I think he works in their special projects department. So we're going to hear from Philip now too.
Okay, I'm here at the Sydney Writers' Festival, and I'm here with Phil Wilcox from the Story Factory. Phil, would you like to tell us what you're doing here today?
So we have a stall called Plant a Poem, and the stall is all run by our Year of Poetry students who meet once a week, Parramatta. They've written poems about their hopes and dreams and what their hopes and dreams would feel like if they achieved them. And then people are coming into the stall, they're talking about their hopes and dreams, and the young people are finding a perfectly paired poem to match that hope and dream, and giving them some seeds to plant. And hopefully by the time those seeds flower, that hope, that poem will be realized.
So it looks pretty busy here. What kind of response are you having from people? Are they telling you much about what they're thinking?
Oh man, we've had a whole range. We've had ones that someone said, I want to get my pilot's license and fly a plane. We've had a lot of hopes and dreams for other people as well as for themselves personally. People's sons and granddaughters and brothers and sisters. We've had couples who talked about love and embarrassed the other person. It's been lovely.
That's amazing. And this morning I was at the Anatomy of a Verse novel workshop as well. What do you think it is about poetry that can speak to people that perhaps prose or traditional sort of novels can't?
I think...
Because you're a poet yourself, yeah?
I am, yeah. And look, I'm biased because I'm very much a fan of visual poetry, of poetry that paints a picture, a poetry that has beautiful imagery. I think these are very short poems, and I think the power of a poem is that it packs a punch in a short amount of time. Not always, but it can, and especially if it's paired with an image that can come to mind, create a movie in someone's mind. And it's hard to argue with a poem because when you have prose, there's set ideas. You're in the idea space, but a poem is, or can be, an emotion made manifest with a visual or an image or one line that sticks out. And I think the power of that is immense.
Yeah, thank you. And if people want to find out more about the Story Factory, what can they do?
Okay, so find us online, find us on social media, storyfactory.org.au. We run workshops in schools, we run workshops after school, so in our centres in Parramatta and Bidwell. We run digital online workshops all across Australia.
Yeah, and what about you as a poet? Where can people find your poetry?
My poetry is on my website. I am Philip Wilcox with 1L.com. But if you Google Philip Wilcox poet, you'll find me.
All right, thank you so much for talking to us today, and have an
Thank you so
amazing
much.
rest of the festival.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Philip. Joe, when you went to the Writers' Festival, did you go to the stand and share your hopes and dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. I shared my hope, and that was to get a book published, probably like half the people that maybe visited the stand over the course of the festival. And I got prescribed a beautiful poem by a young person called Prisha. We'll put a photo of the poem up on Instagram, I think, because it's an absolutely gorgeous poem. And I love the idea that these kids are writing poems and then people are coming to them and they're prescribing a poem. So they know their poem so well that they can think, it's sort of like bibliotherapy, but like a poetry form. They can prescribe it to someone, and what a joy. And it's free, you don't have to pay for it. You can make a donation. But that Story Factory is amazing. They've just opened a second one in Bidwell in Western Sydney. Western Sydney is very close to our hearts because we do live in Western Sydney.
The perfect way to end this episode is to go through Joe's challenge for last week. How did you go? Oh, maybe I'll refresh memory. So your challenge was to reduce your consuming, up your creating, and try and get your screen time, your creative time to balance out.
Yeah. What I really wanted to do was just sort of witness my own habits and my own creativity. And I had some little internal battles with myself. As I was reading every night before going to sleep, I really had to think, is this consuming or creating? Because some people say that's consuming, but to me it feels like reading to me is creating. What do you think?
I think it's learning. I think that some things don't fit into consuming and creating.
Yeah. I feel like when you're reading, you're taking the author's words that they have put a lot of thought into and carefully chosen and put them out into the world. But then there is also that onus on the reader to also co-create with them, because my brain has to put together their words and try and picture it all in my head. So I'm not putting reading as consuming.
I don't think it's
I don't think I'm
consuming.
necessarily adding it as creating, even though I think it is, but I'm not using that as consuming. So basically for me, I've just used like, scrolling on my phone and watching TV and things like that as consuming. So I'm pleased to say that my screen time, according to my little records on my phone was down 43% this week.
So good.
Which is actually shameful that it only took, me to just be a bit more aware to reduce that amount of time. And I had some days where I really didn't do much creating either. But I can say that I did spend 19 and a quarter hours creating last week.
That's heaps.
Yeah, so I was happy with that. Yeah, I did go also on Saturday to a write-in at Writing New South Wales, I will say that, which is 3.5 hours. It does feel a little bit like being on school detention because you're in a room and you have to all be quiet, but it was the best $5 I ever spent. I completely rewrote one of my manuscripts into rhyme and it's okay. I think it doesn't completely suck. So it was a really good use of my time.
No rhyme crimes here.
Yeah, no rhyme crimes, I don't think. And I took it to my critique group on Monday night who also agreed that it didn't completely suck. So that was a good use of my time. But I also did like morning pages. I did lots of creating with my grandkids who come over as well. Did some book reviews. I do book reviews for Kids Book Review. So that is also creating, I think.
Definitely.
So I think just being aware of it has really made a big difference.
Do you feel like there's had a different feel to the week?
I actually do.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Yeah. And what about your challenge? You were going to try and count how many times you actually wrote and fit it into.
Yeah.
different-
Look, I didn't do that, but I did take a photo every time I wrote in the cracks. So I have photos of me writing on my lunch break, writing everywhere, on the treadmill, when I was like doing a face mask at night.
That's awesome. So you've got a record of your creativity for the week.
Yeah, I have a record. Most of it is just my face and then the back of my laptop. But yeah, I just don't have much time. I think like it's just a mum thing.
Yep.
I just don't have much time. I actually don't even have time in the crack to be counting the crack. Like I just actually have to get in and do it. Otherwise it's gone.
The crack's gone by the time you've recorded it.
Yeah.
I look at you and what you do with your full-time job and your kids and your amazing way that you parent your kids and are just so engaged with them. And I think you're doing an amazing job. I think lots of people would think I have to wait till my kids are older before I can do this, but you are not doing that. So
wow,
good
thank
on
you. I also wanted to give a shout out if any of you live in Blacktown Council, the Mayoral Creative Writing Prize is coming up. So it closes on the 14th of September. I believe it's already open, the entries. And how amazing that your local council is putting money and putting resources into creative writing. It's the theme All Out. So do with that what you will, but there are prizes for poetry, nonfiction and short story, I believe.
Yeah, well, good luck. So I've got myself a notebook and every time I submit something this year or I enter a prize or I apply for something, I'm putting a little circle on the front of my notebook and I'm going to aim to fill up the whole front of the notebook with colourful circles.
Yeah.
That's my little dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's good. It's a fun way to keep track of it and it doesn't involve Excel or a graph. So win-win.
That is a definite win for me.
I think that's going to be my challenge, submitting to the Mayoral Prize.
I love that. And if you want someone to proofread it, that can be my challenge, proofreading what you write.
Amazing.
I'm in a neighbouring LGA, unfortunately not that one where I can enter that.
Yes, so that's very exciting. If anyone else is entering, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
I'm
good
so
luck.
excited.
Yeah. I love it.
So much fun. Thank you everyone for listening. I think that's all from us this week. If you wanted to give us a follow on social media at Society of Unpublished Authors, Joe is Joe_Diggs and mine is Sarah Della Piedra, and we will catch you next week.
See ya.
Bye.